The steel doors of Red Ridge Correctional Facility slammed shut with a metallic echo that traveled through every hallway, every cell, every nervous heartbeat inside. Men paused mid-stride. Conversations died mid-sentence. Even the guards looked up from their coffee cups because everybody had learned, the only time the prison goes this quiet is when something unusual is coming in. A single guard led the new inmate through the central hallway. Shackles rattled softly with each step, but the men wearing them walked with a stillness that didn't match the noise. His steps were controlled. Balanced. Like his feet knew exactly where to land. His name on the intake sheet read, Darius Cole, age 34. Black point 6 foot 2.198 pounds, crime, federal transfer. Details sealed. That last line bothered everyone. The details were always sealed when the government didn't want anyone to know who they were locking up. Darius didn't lift his eyes. He didn't twitch. He didn't scan the room for threats like most new prisoners did. Instead, he walked with the calm of someone who had already seen the worst life could offer, but there was someone watching him, someone dangerous. Razor, real name, Raymond Razor Dalton. The most feared inmate in Red Ridge. Towering at 6'5", shoulders like steel beams, tattoos crawling across his arms like angry vines. He walked the yard like a king. A king who ruled through fear, pain, and the knowledge that no one could match him in a fight. When Darius entered the cafeteria for the first time, Razor spotted him immediately. He grinned, a grin that never meant anything good. New inmates were toys. Fresh meat. Something to break, just to remind everyone who ran this place. Darius picked a corner table, quiet, away from the chaos. He unfolded his plastic fork and began eating. No nervous glances. No tension. No fear, and that was the first thing Razor didn't like. He slammed his heavy metal food tray onto the table, the sound exploding through the cafeteria like a gunshot. That's my seat, Razor growled. Darius looked up slowly, calmly, like someone turning a page in a book. I didn't see your name on it. The room froze. He didn't just say that. He didn't, but he did. Razor leaned closer. You fresh here, so I'll explain how things work. You move when I tell you to move. Darius continued eating. Razor's jaw clenched. Boy, I said, I heard what you said, Darius interrupted softly. The problem is, I don't take orders from you. A collective gasp spread through the cafeteria. Some inmates turned away. No one wanted to witness what was about to happen. Razor slammed his fist on the table. You got one chance to walk away alive. Darius placed his fork down with the same gentleness as a surgeon setting down a scalpel. One chance. Darius repeated. For what exactly? Razor didn't answer. He swung a punch so big it could crack ribs. A punch that had knocked out dozens of inmates before they could even scream. A punch many guards were too scared to even try to block, but Darius wasn't there. He had moved. Effortlessly. Just a lean of the torso. A slight shift of his weight. Smooth, quiet, perfect timing. Razor blinked, confused. He swung again, faster this time. Another miss. The cafeteria erupted in shocked whispers. What the hell? How's he dodging Razor? This ain't normal. Darius didn't counter. He didn't threaten. He didn't even look angry. He simply studied Razor like a teacher watching a student fail a test. You fight like a man who's never been in a real fight, he said softly. Razor roared and charged. Bad move. With a single pivot, Darius stepped aside and Razor's giant frame flew past him, crashing into a table. Trays, food, and metal clattered everywhere. Before Razor could fully rise, Darius finally moved with intention. One precise elbow, not too hard, not too soft, just enough. It struck Razor's temple, an angle only someone trained at the highest level would know. Razor dropped to one knee, dizzy, stunned, humiliated. Darius lowered his voice. You really don't know who I am, do you? Razor blinked up at him, his vision blurring, his pride bleeding. The guards stormed in, shouting for everyone to get down. But even they hesitated when they saw Razor. Razor collapsed and holding his head like a wounded animal. No one dared to touch Darius because that's when the rumor began to spread like wildfire. That's him. Is that really? No way. He disappeared years ago. I saw the footage. He broke a man's jaw with a single knee. One inmate, older and wide-eyed, whispered with certainty. That's Darius the Ghost Cole. The undefeated MMA champion, the one who vanished after the last tournament. The name hit the cafeteria like a bomb. Darius Cole wasn't just a fighter. He was a legend. A phantom in the world of mixed martial arts. 24 wins, 0 losses, every victory by knockout or submission. Then, poof. He disappeared. No interviews. No explanations. Just gone. Until now. Razor finally found his voice, but it cracked. You're him. Darius didn't answer. He didn't need to. His presence was the answer. The guards finally escorted him away, not roughly, not aggressively, but with a strange, quiet respect. Because even they knew they weren't dealing with a normal inmate. They were dealing with someone whose hands were registered as lethal weapons. As Darius was led through the hallway, inmates watched from behind their bars with a mix of awe, fear, and hope. Someone finally stood up to Razor, someone stronger, faster, smarter, deadlier, and the scariest part, Darius hadn't even broken a sweat. Back in the cafeteria, Razor sat alone on the floor, breathing hard, his pride shattered into pieces. For the first time since he arrived in Red Ridge, he felt something he had never felt before, fear, because if the new guy could make Razor look weak in front of the entire prison, then Razor wasn't the apex predator anymore. There was a new king in Red Ridge, but what no one knew, not the guards, not the inmates, not even Razor, was that Darius Cole didn't come to prison by accident. He was sent here, forced here. Delivered here like a package with a hidden purpose, and the men who arranged all of it was outside these walls, watching. The morning after the cafeteria incident, an unusual silence settled over Red Ridge Correctional Facility. A different kind of silence, the kind that follows a shift in power. Word spread fast, faster than contraband or rumors. Razor fell, not slipped, not tripped, fell, and the new guy made it look easy. By sunrise, no one dared sit at Razor's table. No one dared joke about it. Even Razor himself stayed in his cell, pretending he was recovering, though everyone knew he was hiding his humiliation. Meanwhile, Darius Cole sat on the edge of his bunk, hands resting calmly on his knees, staring at a crack in the cement wall as if studying a puzzle only he could solve. He didn't smile. He didn't celebrate. He didn't regret. He simply waited. Because Darius knew something the others didn't, Razor wasn't acting on his own. Razor's attack had come too quickly, too precisely, too planned. Razor fought like a man carrying someone else's instructions. So when a guard approached his cell saying, "Cole, Warden wants to see you," Darius wasn't surprised. They led him down the long, dim hallway to Warden Briggs's office, a cramped room overflowing with dusty books, paperwork, and a half-dead plant that hadn't seen sunlight in years. Briggs was a broad-shouldered man with a walrus mustache and eyes that made him look constantly exhausted, but sharp underneath that exhaustion. Briggs didn't speak at first. He just studied Darius. "You made quite the impression yesterday," he finally said, leaning back in his squeaking chair. Darius remained standing. "It wasn't my intention." "That the truth?" Briggs asked. "Or the version you prefer to tell?" Silence. The warden's gaze hardened. "Sit." Darius did. Briggs slid a thin folder across the desk, Darius's sealed file. Every page inside had black bars covering information like someone took a marker and crossed out the truth. "I tried to get your full file," Briggs said. "But it's sealed tighter than the Pentagon." "That concerns me." The warden tapped the folder with a thick finger. "You weren't arrested. You were taken." Darius met his eyes. It was the first sign of emotion he had shown since entering the prison. "By who?" "That's what I want to know," Briggs replied. "Because I can smell a cover-up from a mile away, and you, Cole, you reek of one." He opened one of the few pages not fully blacked out. "You were top of the MMA world." Then suddenly, poof, vanished. No retirement announcement. No final match. You just disappeared. Why? Darius didn't flinch. Briggs leaned closer. "You didn't come here because of a crime. You came here because someone wanted you buried." Another silence. Then, finally, Darius spoke. "The man who owns the league, the billionaire who controls half of the sports world, also owns this prison." Briggs's eyes widened. "Harrington." Darius nodded once. "That greedy bastard." Briggs muttered, pacing around the room. "So he sent you here? For what? Revenge? To silence you?" Darius's jaw tightened, a flicker of controlled rage crossing his face. "He wanted me gone. He needed me gone." "What did you do to him?" Darius took a slow breath. "In my last fight, I knocked his son out cold. Not accidentally. Not gently. His son stepped into the cage believing his father's money made him invincible." Darius's eyes darkened. "I showed him he wasn't." Briggs swallowed. "He died." "No," Darius said. "But he almost did." And suddenly, the picture became clear. Harrington didn't want justice. He wanted vengeance, and for a man with bottomless wealth, vengeance was cheap. "You fought his son fair and square," Briggs said. "You don't deserve to be here." Darius's voice dropped lower. Harrington doesn't care about fair. Briggs let out a long breath, rubbing his temples. So Razor was supposed to finish the job, Darius replied calmly. That's why he attacked so fast. He wasn't just bullying. He was hired. The warden shook his head. This is deeper than prison politics. Harrington's been trying to buy me out for years. I never understood why. Now it makes sense, he wanted control of the prison to hide people. Darius leaned forward. How many others? Briggs didn't answer. That told Darius everything. Later that afternoon, Razor showed up at Darius's cell. Not stomping. Not swaggering. Not roaring. But limping, head down, hands trembling slightly. For Razor, swallowing pride was harder than lifting a truck, but something inside him had changed. He stopped at the cell bars. Look. I didn't know. Darius didn't look up. Didn't know what? That they brought you here to die. Darius turned his head slowly, eyes locking onto Razor with that cold, analytical calm. I was told you were a threat to the prison, Razor said, swallowing hard. They said you assaulted a guard in another facility. They said you were unstable. They paid me to handle you. And you always do what you're told. Darius asked. Razor hesitated. No, then why this time? Razor sighed heavily. Because the one who called me wasn't a guard. Wasn't even from the prison. He was someone on the outside. Someone with power. Harrington, Darius said. Razor nodded. He glanced around, lowering his voice. Look, man, I ain't stupid. You could have killed me yesterday. Snapped my neck like a toothpick. But you didn't. I don't kill unless I have to, Darius replied. Razor took a deep, shaky breath. You fight like something not human, man. Like you're built for war. Darius didn't respond, and guys like you, Razor continued, stepping back. They don't deserve to die in here. For the first time since entering the prison, Darius stood up. Straight. Tall. Powerful. The presence of a man who had survived more battles than Razor could imagine. I'm not dying in here, Darius said. I'm walking out. And when I do, I'm taking Harrington down. The words weren't loud, they weren't shouted, but they hit Razor like a punch to the stomach. Because they weren't a threat, they were a promise. Razor swallowed hard. Then you'll need help. Darius raised an eyebrow. From you. Razor nodded slowly. From everyone Harrington ever buried in this place. Darius finally formed a hint of a smile. Then we start today. And just like that, a strange alliance formed, between the prison's former king and the men destined to become its storm. As night settled and darkness swallowed the halls, the guards patrolled like nothing had changed, but everything had, because in cell 18, a plan was forming. Point 1 built by a man Harrington thought he had caged. A man who had risen from the dirt, the cage, the ring, and now the prison. A man who didn't fear death. Didn't fear pain. Didn't fear Harrington. Darius Cole, the deadliest MMA champion in history, was preparing to escape, not for freedom, but for justice, and Red Ridge Correctional Facility was about to become ground zero.